I'm your host, I suppose, for the next 40 minutes or so, and we're going to be looking today at the sequence of creative success, really, what it takes for a creative these days to get from knowing what they want to do and knowing that they want to make a creative business around something they love. So that might be writing, but it might also be art, or it could be something that's got nothing to do with the creative arts, because research is clearly showing that creativity is actually a state and a way of approaching things. It is not something that's confined to one domain. It's not a particular talent or skill. Neuroscientists were all excited when they heard that they were going to be able to map the brain, and they were going to find out all about this elusive thing called creativity and what goes on in creative brains that doesn't go on in ordinary brains. And they did all their research and they found there's absolutely no difference. The same processes that make one thing make everything. We are all creative, but a lot of us have been trained out of it, or we bring our creativity to one aspect of life and we don't bring it to another. And this is what my passion at the moment is convincing people and showing people and empowering people to actually think about bringing their creative, well, first of all, strengthening and growing their own creative capacity, and then applying the creative process in arenas where it hasn't traditionally been applied, and particularly and specifically around the area of money and making a good creative business. So yeah, that is what we're going to be talking about this evening. So I am just getting up. Hello to everyone who is here. I see there's a few of you around. If you could just kind of send me a little comment or a wave to say that yes, everything is going okay, and that you can hear me all right. That will be great, and I will get this presentation pulled up now so that I can just talk you through the various steps and stages in the sequence of success. Because the thing that often happens with creatives is we try lots of things. We try, we want to do a bit of everything, and we've spoken before about the three hats that the creative business owner has to wear. So you have to be the maker, you have to be the manager, and you have to be the entrepreneur, all three together, because we don't want to outsource the making to somebody else like lots of businesses do. We don't want to just think about the profit like a lot of business advice encourages you to do, to put profit first. Our passion and our profit motives are side by side, intertwined and interlinked, and we don't ever want to really stop. One of the main reasons we want to be in business is so we can keep on doing this thing that we love to do. So yes, you're here. Hi, Suzanne, and thank you for telling me that everything is all right. Thank you for the thumbs up, Mary Claire B. The idea of these workshops is that you get a chance to actually ask questions and to basically sorry, I'm trying to get the presentation showing. Basically to apply the whole thing to what you want to achieve in your business, because you're all at different stages in different places doing different things, and you're going to have questions about the sorts of things that are arising. I've gone and split myself in three now. I have to work this thing out for a second. Hold on, where are we? All right, we don't need two of those. One is enough, and there's only me. So let's hide you. Okay. No. Oh, here we go. I thought I was all sorted now today. Let me just check. So I think you are seeing a split screen with me at the bottom and a bigger screen on top. And what I need to know, it's very small in terms of what I'm seeing. Are you able to actually see the slide? If you could just kind of say yes, yay or nay, and I'll fiddle about a bit more if you can't. So the presentation up on top is what I need you to be able to see. So if you can just tell me if that's looking okay for you, and that will be good, because I can't seem to get rid of the second one that is down below. I'm not sure why that's there. So Yes, thank you, Angela. All right. Okay, so you can clearly see what we are about. So let's just talk through then a little bit about where we are. That's slide 5. Let's go back to number 1. So yes, we are going to be talking about the sequence of creative business success. And today, what I'm going to do is very much give you an overview of the steps and stages, and then there are 7 of them. Over the next 7 workshops, we're going to drill down deeply into each of them. So if it all sounds a bit overwhelming today, don't worry. It actually does break down very logically, and it is my real belief and my hope that in breaking it down in this way, some parts of this you're going to have nailed. You're going to, it's going to be fine for you. But there are parts where you're probably struggling a bit because we are pioneers. We're doing something very new as we work in our digital businesses. And so we're kind of making it up as we go along, and we're learning from each other. So it's not surprising if in some areas there is a bit of struggle. So for those of you who don't know me, just a quick introduction. And most of all, I tell stories, I play with sentences, and then I love bringing people together. So I'm a writer, but also very important to me is create a community, the community of writers at the Alliance of Independent Authors, community of creatives that's now building in the Creativist Club. I'm interested in the techniques and the tools that empower indie authors, of course, and also all other creative entrepreneurs, because I think indie authors have a huge amount, far more in common with other creatives who are building businesses than we have with authors who are doing things a more traditional way. And we can learn much more, I think, from the creativepreneur movement than we can learn from how traditional publishing is doing things in terms of being successful. So I'm also a passionate believer in the power of the creative process itself and our own creative capacities, that we are only tapping into a tiny amount of our potential. And I teach some practices that help to keep that. And I know that some of you come along every morning for our morning flow practice that we started recently. And that's fantastic because I certainly find it really helpful, and I'm loving doing it with other people in the Facebook group. So these workshops, just a little bit so you know what you're doing, it's changed a bit since the beginning of the year. We're now doing them here on Facebook Live on the 3rd Tuesday of every month. It says 8 p.m. London time there, but in fact it is 7 p.m. London time, as you know, because you're here, and hopefully there won't be people here at 8. Well, they can get the replay, they won't be here for the live thing. You can catch up on a replay anytime you want, and you'll find them on my Facebook auth page, because these workshops are based around a book series that is coming, that I've been working on for a very long time. First book launching in October, so that's exciting for me. And these workshops accompany the books. They're a chance for people who have read them or who have been listening to me witter on for the last number of years, and so know something about these principles. They're your chance, as I said, to go a little deeper if there's something that's bothering you, to raise questions, and then just to be here with like-minded creatives and so on. But the whole idea of both the books and workshops is essentially to empower you to make your living doing what you love to do. And so that's what you should be getting out of this. And if you're not getting closer to that, if you don't feel they're helping you to do that, please do ask, questions and tell me about how things are going for you, because that helps me to make it better. So if you want to register for future workshops, if you're interested in going through the next 7 stages over the next 7 months, then you can register on the events page, and all the instructions are there if you want to click back to that later, because let's crack on with what we're actually doing. Just a quick recap before we get stuck into today's work. Last time we spoke about the process itself, the 7 stages of the creative process, and the fact that no matter what you're doing, it always breaks down into these 7 stages, but sometimes they're happening so fast we're not aware of them. So every time you make something, from something as simple as a cup of tea, you go through the stages of intention, incubation, investigation, formation, elaboration, clarification, completion. You just don't know it. You're so used to making tea, it's no bother to you. You don't have to think about it. But when it comes to a bigger creative challenge, like running a creative business and making enough money to support yourself from that business, that's a big challenge. Most businesses fail. And so in this big challenge, you are going through these phases, and it can really help to understand what stage and phase you are in. So tonight, and for the next 7 sessions after tonight, if you keep these stages of the process that we talked about last time in mind and think about where you are in each phase and stage in the particular kinds of steps that we're looking at. So each step you'll be more developed in some than in others. If you just keep that in your mind, because if we try to apply the tools of one stage or phase in the wrong timing, we can really get in our own way. It really helps to know, look, I'm only in the incubation stage. There's no point in thinking about editing just yet, that kind of thing. So if you just keep last month's learning in mind, all of the workshops are available on the Facebook page, and they're also available on my website, where it's easier to follow them and find your way around. Facebook just keeps changing the pages. I can't find anything anywhere anymore. So you will find them on my website on the workshops page. I'm doing a bit of work on that at the moment to tidy it up, but earlier workshops are there. Okay, so on to tonight. Any questions just before we get started with that, or is everybody happy? Helen is wondering, is there a recording available? This is live now. Okay, it's too small. It's too small. Okay, thank you. I'm only getting those replies now. Let me see if I can get a different configuration before I start with the actual slideshow. Hold on for one moment. I think what I need to do is get rid of this chappy here. Definitely not it. That's me too big. I just basically want to disappear. You don't need to see me at all now for this. Okay, why is it not giving us an option? Sorry about this. Just give me a moment. I will get there. We'll definitely get there. Just give me a moment. Okay, what I've done is somehow I managed to put a second one in, so I needed to go back to 2. So how do I do that? Sorry about this, folks. The tech always seems to give me a little bit of trouble. I really thought I was sorted for today, but by putting this extra one in, I'm making it too small for you to see, which is not good. I want you to really get the full screen experience. So bear with me. Aha, I think we're there. Is that better? Are you seeing what you should be seeing, which is basically the introductory slide, which outlines the various stages of the process? Are we there? So if you can just confirm, it's looking good to me. The comments are a little slow to come through to me, so if you just can say that it is better now, then we can crack on. Yes, thank you. I don't know why, Angela, you seem to win the comment and get it in first. Fantastic. All right then. So you will see there outlined the stages that we're going to be talking about. And as I said, some of these you'll be well organized already on them, but there's always something else to know about how you approach things. And I think the most useful thing of all to take away from tonight is that you actually go, you use these steps. These are the steps to go through, and this is the sequence, and that's why tonight is called the sequence of success. So for example, number 3 is about pitching, go pitch to inspire. So you can't really pitch until you've done, that's the pace, but it just says preparation. You can't really pitch properly until you've worked out what it is you really want to do, exactly how you are going to bring that together in terms of your customer, what they value and what you value yourself, and set up the conditions and tools. Only then are you really in a position to start pitching and working out what your pitch should be. So if you go in these, then you begin to build your assets from what you know about the first 3 stages. Of course, it doesn't happen in this linear way. And lots of us get into business, the creative business, by default. We don't even know what we're doing. And as I said, we're all pioneers. We're doing something very new here. And so don't worry that this is not how it actually happened for you in the first instance. What we're really talking about today is understanding that these are the stages. And if you are struggling, if you are not kind of, say, making the profits that you want to make, not having the income that you want to have, not having the influence that you want to have, not selling as much as you want to, or you're running around like a crazy thing and you don't have any time, or, a lack of money or a lack of time, are both indicators that your business is not completely aligned, balanced, and so on. And these steps, you can go back and look, where in the chain did it fall down a little bit, and work on that, and then come back to where you are. So don't worry at all if you're already well ahead of working out, for example, phase 1 or 2, which is about what you love to do and how you bring it to your people. So any questions, do lob them in at any time through the conversation. So yeah, that is completely wrong. Here we are. So what we are looking at, first of all, is the very first step. You need to, as a creative entrepreneur, you need to, first of all, begin with that thing you love to do and working out what it is you want to do, what you want to make of yourself. And what you want to make of yourself, you will make by making, first of all, the things that make up your business, the things that you're going to sell, be that a service or products or whatever it might be. And in the making of those things, you're kind of making yourself. So I always remember this guy I met once when I was quite young and impressionable, and he was a very successful businessman. I was a very left-wing student, just not long out of college and just beginning to write, and very hazy mazy, as young writers are, about the higher things of life, and having this fantastic discussion with this businessman who was a very successful, but very thoughtful, very intelligent, very mindful person who was doing amazing things in the world with his money and with his business. And I remember him saying that he loved his work, absolutely adored it, but what he loved most about it was not the fact that he was a millionaire, because he was, but it was what it had done to him in order for him to become a millionaire. And I remember thinking, I'll have to do the same. I knew at that time that I wanted to write, and I felt one of the reasons I wanted to write was because I liked writers. I liked what writing did to them as people. I liked the kind of people that writers were, and what writing a book does to you, the person that it makes of you. And now I feel like him. I stopped splitting myself off in two, and now I feel the same way about business. I like both. In other words, you don't have to separate them out, as my younger self did. So what you need to do in this phase, it's not just about tapping into what you love to do yourself. It is very much about that, and that want that you have is something we'll be talking about next time when we go deeply into this phase. We'll be talking about true wants and how you distinguish them from false cravings, and how they energize you and give you the ammunition you need to take things forward. So we'll be looking very much at that. But there's a second dimension to it, and this is where a lot of creative entrepreneurs fall down. It's not enough that you value it, that you love it, and it's what you want to do. You also have to find the point around what you love that others value too. if you want to be in business. I mean, if you just want to do it for its own sake, that's great. But if you want to make a business out of it, then you have to locate that point where something that others value enough to pay money for intersects with what you value and want to do with your life. And it's getting that balance right in the first instance, understanding understanding your values and the value you offer, and where what you're offering connects with your values and gives you that one unique thing that you can get really passionate about. And it also gives you your micro niche, your categories, your keywords and your customer. Understanding that intersection is really, really important. And as I said, we'll look into it in more detail next time. The next stage then is about preparation. So before you start a business, there's a lot of preparation that goes on. And, if you were starting a restaurant or any other kind of business, that would be very obvious. You would have to work out a lot of this stuff in advance. Because we're in creative businesses and we are making money out of things we love to do anyway, it's not as clear about how much you need to prepare. And sometimes, very often, creatives skip a lot of the preparation. So you need to prepare at two levels. You need to prepare both to produce, and you also need to prepare to profit. So we're good often at preparing to produce, and we have lots of arguments with ourselves, procrastination and all the rest of it around that. But we're not always good at preparing for profit. And that will be something that we'll be talking about in that workshop, about both of those, what you need to do in order to prepare both for production and for profitable production. And it comes down to very simple things. It comes down to, at the beginning, at the most base level, where are you going to do the work that will need to be done? And not just the work, also the rest and the play, because we were talking about creative practice and the importance of practice as one of your core conditions for success. You will need to find some way to tap your creative side if you're going to run a creative business the creative way. And there are lots of different ways to do that. And some of you here, as I said, join us on Facebook every morning, or Monday to Thursday, for morning flow practice, which includes free writing and inspiration meditation. But there are lots of ways to do it, but it's really important that you have it in place. You also need the tools. We've got fabulous digital tools. They're there. You need to use them. It's incredible what you can make happen in terms of building, your influence and your income these days in our creative digital industries. We really are spoiled, and there are too many opportunities, actually. It isn't a case of not having enough. There are too many great things that we could do, and the challenge is around selection, and that's tools. And time is super important. So at the moment, I'm working hard on these time maps that I'm going to be offering you, whereby you will actually, lay out your creative week in a way that does incorporate creative rest and play as well as the work. And that also takes in some of the research that is now being found about optimal amount of time to work for and how to actually get good creative flow. So place and time and tools and conditions, and then pacing. And that's really important. Stop pushing. Pushing doesn't actually get us very far. Pacing ourselves well through the week, through the month, through the year is very key. And we'll look at that a lot more closely in a couple of months' time. Okay, let's just see. Sorry, I need to hop over here. Are we going okay? Has anybody got any questions? Are we clear? Anything you want to say or anything you want me to cover? Don't forget to just throw it into the comment box there and I will take it on board. So no questions there as yet, so I'm taking it that all is well, but do let me know if there's anything you want to do, and we'll stop in a moment and do a little bit of free writing. And I think you're all familiar with free writing, which is writing fast and writing free, but if anybody isn't, just let me know B is saying she needs to learn more about pacing. Yeah, we'll go into that in great detail. Today is the overview of the 7 stages. So pacing is something we will cover not next month, where we'll be looking more at true wants and your passion and your mission and your purpose and your mashing, as I call it, where they all come together. That's what we look at next month. The month after that will be about preparation and pacing. Pacing's a huge issue. It's one I struggle with myself every so often, especially if things are going wrong in life. You know, it's very easy for me to throw myself into work. I know some of us have the opposite reaction. It becomes difficult to make yourself do the necessary. One way or the other, it becomes problematic. So yeah, we definitely look a lot at that, and that will be our November workshop. Okay, so the next stage is your pitch. So this is a short message that you give to people. You need to learn it off. You need to be able to say it comfortably. So you need to have worked through step 1 and step 2, where you understand your passion and you have done some preparation, you know the conditions you need, the tools you need, and so on. Because otherwise you can think you very often, creatives, we think we can do much more than we actually can do. We think we're going to, I'm always thinking I'm going to get much more done than I actually do get done. And that's even when I'm careful and I map it. So getting your pitch right is very often a matter of properly going through those first 2 stages and really understanding your tools and your techniques and how you're going to go about things helps you to formulate your pitch. So the pitch needs to be a short summary of what you do, but it needs to be more than that. It needs to be a short summary of what you do, told in a way that excites the other person so they want to buy something. So it's not as simple as just kind of a sentence, here is what I do. I see a lot of creatives with very boring bios and LinkedIn style explanations of what they do. And when I know them or see what they're actually producing, it's amazing, and their pitch is not connected to their actual production, what's going on, what they really truly want to do. We're a bit afraid and we hide behind nice business like talk and the way we see somebody else who's got a lot of followers and we decide we'll copy what they do because it must be, in inverted commas, right. And it's not like that. Success in this business is really about going very deeply into yourself, and it's a process that keeps on going. That never stops. You go back in because you keep changing, the business keeps changing, the world out there keeps changing, but all the time you keep returning to self. And if you can get a pitch that can last you a lifetime, a lifetime of creative business, that's marvelous. So it needs to be big enough to actually encompass what you do now and what you hope to do in the future. And if possible, anything you might do. And of course, that's not possible for everybody at all. But some of us do kind of know. And I always think we're the lucky ones if we actually do know exactly what we want. And then we're only changing how we do it and the tools that we use and the techniques and things. But the overall big picture doesn't change. And that's great, and that makes it easier to pitch. But however, whether you're not quite sure, the pitching process helps you to get clearer. So again, in a workshop, we're going to go very deeply into pitching. But now I'd just like to stop for a moment and just free write for just a few minutes about the first 3 steps. So the passion, the preparation, which includes pacing, and the pitch. I'd like you to just, without thinking at all, just start writing now about those 3 things. Any idea that hops into your head, just write fast and free. I'm going to turn on a timer. Thought I have it there in front of me. Hold on, I'll get it. You keep writing. So writing fast and free, 3 minutes on pitch, preparation, pace, passion. Okay, so you can put down your pen and you can have a think about that a little bit more as we go on. Obviously, we'll look at it in more depth, as I said, in the next sessions. But when you have that sort of roundness in place, you can begin then to understand your assets, because the key to success in creative business is assets, the understanding of creative assets, what they are, how you make them, and so on. So just before we leave and look at assets now, which will be a sort of a core part of what we're doing for the next second half of the presentation, any questions arising out of the free writing, anything, any comments, anything that arose, anything anybody would like to say about the content of what hopped into their head and hopped out onto the page, or any issues arising, just if you'd like to ping them into the comment box, we can deal with them as we go along. So yeah, assets. It's so important to understand assets, and so few of us do. And we think of assets as being a very financial sort of thing. And of course, financial assets are part of what we look at as creative business people. But it's only that's only one tiny part of it. So what do I mean when I talk about assets? I'm talking about anything that increases your influence and your income. But essentially, if we're looking at an asset should do both. An asset in a creative business should do both. It should be something that actually puts money in your pocket. That's basically the blunt definition of what an asset is. Now, it's not always obvious that it does that. And sometimes it does that through earning an increased income, but sometimes it does that through saving and tightening up a process. So as creatives, we have three different kinds of assets that we need to constantly be looking at. And you know, through all of these workshops, you'll hear me talk again and again about the maker, the manager, and the entrepreneur, the three hats you have to wear. And when we think about assets, this becomes really, really important because, again, as creatives, very often we're good on the craft assets. So we talk a lot, say we're a writer like I am, so I spend a lot of time with writers, and we spend a lot of time talking about word counts, productivity on the making of the book. And that's one kind of asset. If you're a service-based person, as a digital creative entrepreneur, so say you are a counselor or a coach or in the wellness industry or the education industry in any shape or form, as a creativepreneur, you will now be shaping up all you know and all you've done into digital assets like books and video and audio and those kinds of things, but also your sessions can possibly become assets that will tell stories for you. And obviously each session that you do can be done online as well as off. So it's a matter of considering each of it. That's the craft asset, the product, the service that you make and offer out there. Then there are the process assets, which is the business itself. And this is what is often called working on the business, not just in the business. So these are the processes that you have around, you know, how you make things, how you manage money, how you get paid, how you invoice, you know, what is the cycle from the start to the finish on something like that. Your business processes are greatly facilitated by being in a digital business. So things that used to take whole departments, like getting paid, can now be done by an online tool. And there are many things like that. But we often don't give enough thought to our own processes. We neglect some of these things. We don't factor the time into our monthly map, you know, that we need to do this. So it's important to understand the processes that you do and run in your business. And they're quite simple for creative businesses. We're very lucky. But if you don't, this particular type of asset, the actual structure and processes that go on within the business, if you don't get on top of those, you're actually a freelancer. So it is the ability to work out your business process assets that changes you from being somebody who exchanges time for money, essentially a freelancer, who is very similar to somebody who's in paid employment. But somebody in business actually sets up a process that runs when they're not in the room. And that is, you still, of course, are the maker. You make the product that is being sold and being presented and being offered out to people. And of course, often you are in the room because you want to be in the room. We're in creative business. We love what we do. But the point is, your business needs to get to the stage where it runs, and you could take 2 weeks certainly, and without ever turning on your laptop, or a month, or even longer. You could actually be absent, and money would still be generated, work would still go on. Everything, nobody, you know, the people who buy what you have to offer wouldn't notice that you weren't actually there, because everything has been set up in such a good way that it is delivered by your processes, and that can take a bit of time to work out. So that will be our workshop in a while. And then the other kinds of assets are growth assets, and these are what the entrepreneur thinks about. How it can make this business bigger, how it can bring in more money, how it can, you know, and growth doesn't always mean getting bigger, adding on more people, adding on more things to do. Growth can be about just doing things better. And in fact, in creative business, it generally is. It's not, most of us don't want to run huge, big empires. We're very happy to be in our micro business, just ourselves, maybe one partner working with us. That we're not looking for that huge growth in the conventional way of talking about business growth. But growth is profit per person in the business. So if it's just you, that your profit is growing, your influence is growing, your impact is growing, but your work isn't necessarily growing. Processes are, the growth assets are set up in such a way that they, again, manage to go off and work on the internet on your behalf without you having to be there. So any questions about any of this, do fire them through. Here's Suzanne with a question. This is something I've been thinking about for our music teaching business. We are exchanging time for money, and that won't be sustainable in the long run. I'd like to be able to retire at some point. Absolutely. I completely agree. You'd be a better teacher and so on for all of that. I think I spoke to you about putting you in touch with somebody who's done that really quite successfully, and we must hook you up with him. But yes, definitely no matter what business you are in now, it can be turned into products and services that can be delivered digitally that work for you, while you're asleep, as the passive income people like to say. I'm not a believer myself really in passive income. I don't think it encourages the right way of thinking about this at all. But getting your business up and running so it is a self-sustaining entity, so you're not running around like a busy person, all the time, work, without understanding what's going on, and so that you are getting enough money in to sustain the business, sustain you, and sustain the people that it needs in it to keep it going. And of course, the key to all of this is getting some virtual assistants, and you're not expected, neither can you do all of this. You have to hire some help. But again, that all goes back to understanding your assets. Once you understand them and you know what it takes to get from the beginning of the process to the end of the process of making that thing or of running that process within your business, once you know the steps and you know the bits you like to do and are good at, and the bits you don't like to do and are not so good at, and they're usually one and the same thing, and you outsource those bits that you're not good at. But if you're constantly hiring people to help you just when you're in crisis, then you're not actually building an asset in that mindset, in that mind mode. And again, don't feel overwhelmed, because we are going to go through this in much greater detail in a little while. So we've got lots of lovely, I think before, it's well worth saying, and I don't have time because the time is running away on us as usual, I'm talking too much, but it is worth answering some of these questions that are here on this screen. What assets have you already created? Are they working for you? Are they you? Are they exactly what you want to do? Or did you create something that you thought the market would like? Okay, fine. But, just analyzing the assets that are there. How good are your business process assets? How easy is it for you to manage the functions that hold your business together? And have you got growth assets in mind and in place? Are you developing those as you go? And again, with a profit mentality on, because again, there's 1,000 million things you could do. There's so many opportunities now. None of us are starved of opportunities. It's about selection here. It's about drilling down, getting small, going really, really small, doing the next small thing that you can do. Okay, so this is then about establishing. The next thing is about understanding your own process. And that's your overall process as a creative entrepreneur, which encompasses within it those three smaller processes of the maker, the manager, and the entrepreneur. The overall thing to establish which stage are you at in the process that we talked about earlier, the 7 stages of the process. Are you just beginning with working actually on your business? What stage are you with the current product or service that you're going to be offering next, or that you are putting out there, want to be used or known about more widely. Mapping each wave of the activity, exactly where you're at and where you want to take it. So the important thing to understand here, and we can't talk much about this at all until you've gone through the other steps, the first 4 steps. The important thing to remember is that your process is both personal to you, but it also fits that 7-stage sequence that I'm always banging on about. Intention, clear intention, incubation, allowing the subconscious in, investigation, doing the proper level of research and preparation, formation, then the drafting of a blueprint, elaboration, where you deepen that blueprint and make sure it's exactly what you want to do right now, clarifying it, fixing it up, editing, whatever, and then completing, putting it out into the world and going through that full cycle with whatever one thing you're working on, and not getting distracted by shiny object syndrome and, running off and doing something else in the middle of it and coming back and saying, I am talking to myself here. So, until you've gone through the first 4 steps, you can't really think, even trying to think right now, I think about your process would probably be more confusing than anything else. But just to take away that it is both personal and also universal. And then there's publishing. So a lot of you are authors, I know, and so publishing is what you do. And I'm not really talking to you in this slide, though there is extra publishing that you do that you may or may not know about or think about as publishing. What I'm talking about here is really the fact that every business is now in the publishing business. Everybody wants to run a digital creative business, must publish, because it's those published assets that we were talking about earlier that do the work that in the old days was done by, in the traditional way, was done by a sales force or a marketing team. For you, it's likely to be a tweet, a brochure, a book, a blog post, an article, white paper, an infographic, a heat map, a quiz that you set up. So these assets that you create, they're publishing assets. They are forms of media that express and tell the story of your business, the thing you'll have worked out in your pitch, what your story is, who you are, what you're offering, why you're offering it in this unique and particular way, what your values are, how your value intersects with the person who is going to want to buy. And it's very small. It's micro niche. You want to be only talking to the people who get it, because it's on a global scale when you work digitally. So no matter what you're doing, however small and niche it is, there is an audience there who wants it and who needs it and who is willing to pay for it. But you need to work out who they are, who you are, and where you intersect. And that's where the success begins to come. And publishing then is the process by which you will pass on what you have to offer over to them. So forget about your qualifications, your CV, your background, your history, your resume, all the old traditional things. Authority, reach, influence, income in creative business is not built in those ways really anymore. It's very few people are even interested in that stuff. It's Google. It's it's about standing out and creating authority and reach in our world is about publishing. And you need to put a face on your business and create information funnels that get you recognized online. And you are who Google says you are. And so things like SEO become very important, and your social media and various things like that. And I don't talk about the detail of that stuff because there are lots of experts out there who are very good. I do recommend people that I know you can trust and who will give you very good advice. But my advice is kind of before you're ready for them. So where I come in is helping you. It's not advice that replaces any of that. It kind of precedes it. So you understand what you're doing. So you understand what asset you're creating. When you go on Facebook or Twitter, I'm here now talking to you guys with these slides and things. And in the process of doing that, I'm creating something that will have a shelf life beyond the hour that we will spend talking here. That's the kind of thing I mean, that you begin to, I love doing this. I'm having a great time having this conversation. It's very much part of who I am and what I want to kind of get over. And I've been doing it for years in private, but now I do it this way. I do it in a very different way. And that's the kind of thing you need to be thinking about for yourself and for your own business. How can you create credibility and discoverability so that you're the person that turns up and somebody is looking for the kind of thing that you offer? And finally, then, is partnership. And once you've got all the other 6 in place and you've got everything kind of sorted pretty well, it's never perfect. You've got to get used to, as a creative, things being good enough and the perfection of imperfection, as they say. So it's never perfect, but when it's good enough, you can begin to work with other people in the field, and that maximizes, again, optimizes your income and your influence. It creates opportunities. You're opening doors to the right people. So these are people who are already in touch with the kind of customer that you want to have a conversation with, and they can help to bring you there. And you can go further with that. You can do actual active collaborations, and there's all sorts of things you can do at the partnership level, and we will discuss those when it comes to that particular workshop. So they are the 7 stages. Let's just look. I have to look at my lack of income as an investment at the moment, or I will go nuts and give up. Yeah, absolutely. We all invest in what we're going to do, and we are at different stages, and that's what I'm talking about. If you are at the it's Marie Claire who's raising this, and thank you for raising it, because you are not alone. So she's saying, I think I'm a way off all this, I'm still making the things, and you are, and I know you're doing an awful lot more besides that, my dear. You've got a huge amount of things going on at the life level as well as at the business level. Making the things, yeah, you're the factory, you're the crafter, you're the maker, and you can do this a couple of ways. So you can actually spend quite some time just doing that, making the stuff, so that when you do go out there, you have a good bank of stuff, and one thing leads to another, and you're not just selling one thing and so on. That is a way to approach it, and it's a good way, I think, Marie Claire, in a situation like yours, where you're, I know you won't mind me saying it because you're very open about it, you're working as a carer as well as doing what you're doing. So making the stuff and just concentrating on that. If you have enough income to keep going, and as you say, you're investing the time, you're investing the income, that's absolutely 100% legitimate. And so all of that is in the intention stage. So, but you're working through the 7 stages in the making. So you're getting through all that. Another way to approach it, and if you have time, so this comes into the workshop we will do on the conditions, the time, the space, and the conditions for creation are very important. Our job as manager, our biggest job as manager, is to create the right conditions for ourselves. That's the most important thing of all. In fact, if you create the conditions right, things begin to happen. They begin to rise up through those conditions, rather than beating ourselves up about actually making the thing itself or working on the business itself. Creating the conditions and habits is the most important thing. And I know, again, that you do that, Marie Claire, through your devotion, through to practice and to what you're making. The other way to do it is to do a bit of everything. If you have more time, so that you are working on each aspect of your business at the same time. So you're doing some crafting, you're doing some business process work, and you're doing some entrepreneur work in a week. So you don't have to do it every day. I think as creatives, often the craft work is going to take, and by craft, I mean everything, teaching, I don't just mean making crafts, handicrafts. I'm talking about the whole thing. Often we put more time into that, and that's fine, but it depends on where the need is, and it depends on what the intention is. It depends on what you want to happen. So much comes back to that original intention and passion. and what you love and what you want to do and what you would love the outcome to be. So that's what we will look at, breaking it down into pieces, very small pieces as we go, so that some of this becomes easier. And next time and through the next 7 workshops, we will be doing small takeaways. So there will be things that I will ask you to do, which you should be able to complete between within the month. There will be one task that you would do within the month that would set up what you need to get on top of this, so that by the time we get to workshop 7, you will be in a position to go and make partnerships with influencers and other people in your industry who can help you to do more of what you want to do better and with more ease. So that's it for this evening, unless you have any other questions for me, which I will be very pleased to answer. Next time, that's just a little bit about the how to sign up for next time if you want to do that. And just to say that the Go Creative books, which will explain an awful lot of the background of this as well, are coming soon, and be launching the first one in October. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been a long time coming. And also to let you know that we have a closed Facebook group called the Creativist Club Cafe, and you find it on Facebook, groups /creativist.club. A creativist is somebody who applies the creative process to everything in life, not just to work, and certainly not just to art. And I think that's the joy of being a creative entrepreneur, is that you can also be a creativist. You can create the life around the work, and the work feeds the life, instead of, as it does for so many creatives, the life just collapses in. I think I answered that one, Angela. The first one comes in October, and then they'll be following on after that. But there's a lot in the first one about what we'll be talking about in the next workshop, which is the passion, the mission, and the conditions, setting up the conditions for success. So thank you very much for coming along. You can add a comment later to this if a question strikes you, or you can catch me anytime on Facebook or anywhere else, the various places. I am to be found online, and I'd be delighted at any time to answer your question. Love to have you in the Creativist Club Facebook group. We're building a really nice group of very supportive creativepreneurs who are really helping to motivate each other and celebrating successes, setting our intentions at the beginning of the week, confirming them at the end of the week, seeing how we're getting along. So do come along and join us there if that appeals to you. And wishing you the very best for this. I hope you have a creative month, and I hope to see you next time when we'll be talking about making a living from what you love. Bye-bye now.